So I will leave you now with our host, Jürgen Brandstatter from IHE. Please, Jürgen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia, and a warm welcome to anybody in this call. Thanks to you for being here with us during almost holiday season already, with high temperatures out there. So we appreciate that very, very much. I'm Jürgen Brandstetter. I'm part of IHE-Europe, and I'm also the Global Standards Director of IHE Catalyst. And this webinar is now one more step in our IHE's mission to deal with the topic of standardization in the secondary use sector. Some of you might have noticed we had a very successful first workshop at the last IHE-Europe Connectathon in Vienna last year, which resulted in the work on a paper. And we had another workshop at this year's IHE Connectathon in Brussels, where we continued this work. And this is now the third step, because we truly believe that the secondary use sector of EHDS is very, very important. And we as a standards development or standards profiling organization, it's our interest and it's our mission actually to bring standardization into any sector where it's needed. So with this, please advance. Yeah, thank you. We have prepared, and thanks to all of the speakers and especially to Dimitri pulling that program together for being with us today. We have these topics in this hour for you. We have first a report summary on that report, which I mentioned, given from Dimitri Etin. Then we have with us Laurie Fouquet from IHE International, dialing in from the States. She is co-chair of the Quality Research and Public Health domain of IHE, and we report on what we have on standards for secondary use there. We have with us Stefan Sauermann from the University of Applied Sciences in Vienna, talking about data holders, data users, initial steps. And then we have with us Fidelia Cassini, who will report about secondary use in the context of EHDS and how ready we are, or will bring up a little bit of discussion where we stand here to finally lead into a discussion block, which will be a large block, will be like the second half of this meeting. And for this, please take use of this slider, which is here on that page. With this slider, we collect comments, thoughts, questions, anything which comes to your mind during that presentation, so that we can work on them in that discussion block. So this should be truly interactive. Please don't be shy. The reason is to find out, what could be a next step to really advance standardization in the secondary use sector. And by that, I stop now being the introduction block, and let's go directly into the topic. And Dimitri, please take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. And also from my side, big appreciations for those who spend their afternoon, during this hot summer days. I hope that for some of you, the heat wave is over. It's still not the case in Vienna. We're still under the heat wave. Hopefully, later today, they forecasted some rain, so maybe there's going to be some relief. And what we would like to try to do today is not really focusing so much on the report that we did and the results of the workshop, if you will. I do want to get you a little bit all up to speed. Obviously, we don't expect that you have read the report by now, even though it's not a large one, and you have the core code here. We've announced it yesterday. So I want to give you a little bit of a brief about it, and then with my co-speakers today, we would like to kind of give you our perspective of what is happening in terms of the preparation to the implementation of EHDS for the secondary use. And we focus specifically on the relationship between data holders and data users, if you will. So something that more or less we can call as a collective effort as real world practice. Because we have a lot of things already discussed and written in terms of the regulation. And there's a lot of projects that are trying to move forward the normative part, if you will, of the secondary use. But we also trust that there's a lot of things that regulation won't cover and shouldn't cover. And this is where probably we as the professional community step in. And we've started this work already last year, first time at IHE Connectathon in Vienna. And we tried to identify and to scope the area because there was a hypothesis and the feeling that there is a lot to do for us as a professional community without waiting for regulation to answer all those questions. And in Vienna, we only maybe tapped a little bit into the problem area. And we knew what we wanted to do in Brussels as we met next time, March this year. And we tried to bring various stakeholders in one room and try to go from, let's say, scoping to pinpointing the problems. And as you can see here, so we've managed and we've been lucky to get a very diverse audience, if you will, ranging from medtech and health tech to SDO people to policymakers and researchers. And we split into 4 areas, if you will, 4 tables. We've tried to think about what actually this practice is. What is this good data? What is this good data practice? What is this health data good practice, if you will? What is happening if we want to really analyze the data under and use the data and look at the data under the HDS regulation? What could be done from the standardization perspective, if anything, or if everything? And what is practically happening if we compare secondary use to primary use, where data doesn't really move and maybe algorithms move? So we had that conversation as well. What exactly do we move between data holders and data users? And maybe the cross-cutting themes across all these blocks were standardization, operationalization, and creating trust. I would like also to point out, I would like to give thank you to Fidelia, who is with us today, and Stefan, who co-moderated and supervised the workshop, but also who is not today with us, but the leaders of the table, Irini Kashisoglu from DG Sante and Inke Schutte from Cienzano. They've been very helpful. Also, Medtronic was great driving the industry conversations forward with Tim Jongen and John Brennan. And Lori is as well with us today, and she was leading also the table for standardization. So these were the questions, and you can tap into the report and see all those questions we've raised. I don't want to go into the details of what's been raised during the conversation in Brussels. I just highlighted some of the probably key questions that we wanted to go a little bit further and a little bit deeper into. And probably what's important and how we see the change that has happened between, let's say, Vienna discussion and Brussels discussion, that we've tried to go from seeing the gaps, basically saying, hey, we have a problem, but we don't know what to do with that problem, more into defining the needs. And I think that we've progressed, at least that's my biased perspective on that we've probably done quite some good discussions and some conclusions, and we probably have an idea how do we want to move forward, how do we want to understand how the data moves, what standards are involved in that or may be involved in that move, what could happen with algorithms, what is the governance between data users and data holders. So we don't have the answers, but we at least understand what the needs are between data holders and data users. And that is our belief. If we understand the needs, maybe we can find solutions to those needs. This is a little bit more specific and what we actually ended up really focusing on, which is the relationship between data user and data holder. Because we all understand that regulation is extremely powerful. Regulation mandates you to open up all your data sets. But does it mean that when you open up all the data set, does it mean that they are actually useful, all those data sets? Would you be able to utilize those data sets? And that's been a lot of conversations past the March workshop. I think that there's been also a lot of input from a variety of different European projects, TEDS inclusive, which also try to answer this from the top-down perspective. What exactly can regulation specify more? How implementing acts can look like in terms of supporting this relationship between data holders and data users, and what the responsibility of the health data access body could be in this regard. But we still believe that there is not everything could be done between the relationship of data users, data holders through health data access bodies. And there's a lot of direct relationship that we need to establish or re-establish already under the regulatory requirements of EHDS. We also wanted to highlight a little bit here to say we do recognize that what we offer might be seen as just another community, just another work that has been done. But what we also try to give you to think about is all the projects that we listed here and all the projects that we haven't listed here, which produce a lot of different best practices, if you will. Very often these best practices stay as deliverables, which is very difficult to navigate. And because majority of those projects are top-down projects, this is also very difficult to relate them to your existing work. If you're doing a clinical study, if you're doing a research, it's not necessarily that you can immediately benefit from the results of those projects. And that's what we actually are trying to sort out, to see whether we can go, instead of top-down approach, what we can do from the bottom-up approach, embracing everything that was been done from top-down. But what is happening in the field, what is happening today in research centers, in labs, we call it practices that work. And we would like to propose to move these practices to community practices. And then this could probably branch into different opportunities. They could stay still non-normative opportunities and be the shared practices, shared tools, codes that you can just download from GitHub, or they can go to semi-normative and be embraced by a variety of different governance bodies. And eventually they also can end up on the top level with the HDS board. We still have to see how HDS board works, but definitely this community can feed results into the EHDS board for something that actually makes sense. And I think that this is good to try to understand what exactly is happening in the field, because this will be a very highly educated advice towards the EHDS board. So that's our ambition. And with that, I probably finish on my side on the report. So please read the report. Please also engage in the conversation. We have the Slido open. Please try not to use the questions and answers here in the chat, because we would like to keep the questions and answers within the Slido, because that will allow us to also do some follow-up on those questions as well. And I'd like to give the stage to Lori and for her to provide us a little bit of the perspective of what IHE is doing today and what IHE has done between March and today on the secondary use. Lori, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm Lori Parquette, the planning co-chair for the Quality Research and Public Health domain for IHE International, and just give you some updates based on what we've done since our last workshop. Next slide, please. So one of the key things that I want to highlight is the de-identification handbook, because the pseudonymization and de-identification is so key to secondary use. This is an important document. It was published for public comment on June 2nd. That's a 30-day public comment. So comments on that document should be submitted by July 2nd. I did put in here all the links to the to be able to make comments if you choose. I would highlight that this is defining the process of de-identification and techniques. This one is not an interoperability profile, but within this one, we included an example which conforms to what at least had been published previously by the EHDS2. And that use case uses de-identifies the International Patient Summary and Vital Records Death Reporting for mortality data for a simulated epidemiological study. So we look forward to any feedback you have there. Next slide, please. As the next step, as I mentioned, the de-identification handbook is not an interoperability profile, but we have now a new profile proposal for de-identification services, which is intended to be able to support a policy-governed workflow with implementable actors and transactions, and it looks at authorization, intake, it does the de-identification, and task execution. So it may be more of a workflow related profile, but it has transactions and actors. Next slide, please. And I am not going to go into the details of this, but you'll see each of these, the boxes are the actors and transactions are the areas in between. One of the challenges we're having with this profile proposal is scope. So initially it was proposed to be able to de-identify DICOM, fire, any content that might be needed. Because of the level of coordination with the radiology domain and DICOM and other activities that are underway in those domains, we're scaling back for the first set to focus on fire. And you'll see some dotted lines, which are, some of the authorization context and how the data sources and consumers interoperate with each other. There's a lot that has been placed out of scope so that we can get the basic framework moving and fundamental interoperability. Next slide, please. As we mentioned, Rada Hussein is leading the ongoing work item for secondary use or data exchange, which is intended to have identify all of the profile components that need to be orchestrated, whether they be existing building blocks, or we might be identifying gaps in this process to be able to fulfill the secondary use requirements for EHDS2, but we're also expecting that this will be an international focus, that not everything will need to be specific to the European needs. We believe that a lot of this will be expandable internationally. Next slide, please. And what you can see with that, and this is still work in progress, these actors and transactions may change, but I would highlight what I covered in de-identification services. You can see on the second box on the right-hand side, the encompassing de-identification services box. We've been working jointly to make sure that we harmonize these actors and transactions with the components that are going into the profiles that are being built concurrently. So more work will be happening on this one. Next slide, please. I want to re-highlight, based on our discussion in Brussels, the query for existing data mobile. This is a profile that supports fire queries for fundamental resources that I've listed out here, but you can see secondary use, a lot of outcome analysis, et cetera, can benefit from the data that's already being structured and exchanged for clinical purposes, and it can be used as secondary use. So we have a lot of implementers. There were 10 systems that tested this at the European Connectathon this year. And we would anticipate this expanding. What we've done to this profile is we've added we've approved of CP to query for an IPS. You'll notice that the items listed on the left-hand side, allergies, problems, procedures, et cetera, those are all part of the IPS with the exception of encounters. And some of the regional IPSs do cover encounters. So we're looking to be able to query for an IPS. We're seeing some cases where IPS is being used for secondary use purposes to supplement cancer registries, to make some of that fundamental reporting. The second thing that we have a change proposal for, as a direct fallout of the workshop, is query for aggregate data. These are fire-based queries in query for existing data. This really would be an option to query for counts or summary data that's already aggregated, such that it actually wouldn't need the de-identification. It would only need profiling constraints of, say, minimum sizes returned, such as 5 is a typical number. So that one needs a little more work in specification, but we did bring the suggestion forward. Next slide, please. Just to kind of highlight what we're doing in the North America Connectathon for secondary use, we're doing a plug-a-thon. We have multiple centers from the CDC that have a variety of goals here. One of them, which I think will be of interest to this group, is the healthcare surveys team from CDC is testing bulk fire to see if they can retrieve their reports for the healthcare surveys by way of the bulk fire. And this group on secondary use here was considering that bulk fire might be a good option for retrieving secondary use data. So maybe this will inform some additional profiling efforts, and we'll see whether or not that's successful. There's some incorporation of occupation and industry into that healthcare survey data streams and into vital records reporting. We're working with death reporting for incorporation of occupation and industry, and we're working, we have a new initiative to leverage AI to augment some pre-population of facility-based birth reporting data. We have a profile, birth and fetal death reporting enhanced that defines how to harvest the reporting data out of the medical record, whether it be via CDA mapping or FHIR mapping. It has rules as to how to interpret things like gestational diabetes and infectious diseases, things that are core to that reporting stream. And the use of AI to augment it, to maybe go after some of the narrative content to draw out additional information where some of the structured data can't happen there. And then we also anticipate secondary use of IPS. So just some food for thought. Maybe we have a secondary use track at the European Connectathon next year. Any ideas that you may have that we might be able to put a toe in the water. Okay, next slide. That might be it. And hand that off to Stefan.
Thank you so much, Laurie. Stefan, we hope that you're audible.
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Is it fine?
Very good. Yes.
Oh,
all right.
What a relief.
Take
Thank
it
you.
over.
Okay, so thank you for raising the flag already. And what I would like to summarize is let's say, the flavor of the discussions we had in the workshops in Vienna and in Brussels, focusing on how the holders and data users feel. Dimitri, can you take us to the next slide? So initially, the impression may have been that the data holders and data users are typically in separate organizations. One of them produces data like a hospital and the other uses it like a research organization. And so if you look at the different types of organizations we have, which are part of this data space domain, we have them all, healthcare researchers, public registries, payers, and other organizations like companies and regions who are doing public health management. And in fact, they are both data holders and data users. And this actually has been the case for quite some time, and they may have known or they may have not known. And on the next slide, some further thoughts about that. So typically, there are units in large organizations, and some of these units may be especially there for analyzing data. So they would be data users, like here in the unit B. And you would have other units also in hospitals and in universities who would focus on special issues. And traditionally, they have not been in close contact over the years, not even within their organization and even less across organizations. And if there have been connections, then they would always be between the data users, like in a multiple center clinical trial, or when sharing primary health data. So these communities have already been established, but they have never been together. And so the discussion, which data do we need? What might we do with the data? And how is this all going to work? Has never really been raised in the past. And what I feel and what many have said is that it's great that this discussion is now starting. And so if you go to the next slide. So I think what we have seen in the workshops is that we are now moving into the discussions of legal, the legal details are coming up. And you see that in the bottom right. The European regulation definitely does its job, and we see a big flow of regulations and also the standards coming out, especially for primary use, not so much for secondary use. And the impression is that this is going to happen. And most of them now have the feeling, oops, we should look at this much more than we have looked at it a year ago. And of course, yes, there's going to work to be done. So within the organizations, those units are probably getting together and knocking on the doors of management, and management knocks down and asks who is doing what and who should be engaged. And I think in the organizations out there, data users, data holders, within their larger domains, we I think are going to move into discussions where we are focusing on the value of the data that we see in those many places, and join that into the discussion that Lori has just raised, like specific things we need to standardize. And I think we know much less about secondary data use cases than we know about primary data use, because what happens here, connecting primary data to analysis, is a rather new field, and this discussion hasn't really started, and that is my impression. Also, if you see the questions that have already been raised in the Slido, there is a lot questions about trust, about how can I actually feel and understand the value of specific pieces of data, which pieces of data are there, and how are we analyzing them. And this will depend very much on the specific flavor of problem you try to solve. Is it a regulation process in a company, or are you trying to manage a region to optimize health services? So, and that will involve a lot of places, a lot of people who really haven't been into this type of standardization discussion at all. Most of us are used to do the primary data exchange standardizations, but secondary is only starting. So that's the feeling I get, and so I think it would be great to over time invite these many units that exist into these discussions, and trying to understand the most important use cases and the most important types of data that they would like to share and analyze as soon as possible. And then we can try to provide solutions for these specific items over the next time, building on what has already been done. Yeah, and I think that's my last slide, if I'm right. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. So Fidelia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dimitri. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fidelia Cascini. I'm the Italian representative at the European Health Data Space Committee, and I'm also the former chair of the steering board of the Health Data Access Bodies Community of Practice. So I want to share today just some reflections following my colleagues that right now we have several challenges in front of us regarding the secondary use of data and technology. I mean, infrastructure or simply the legal framework regarding this is only part of the story. Please, the next slide. One of the main challenges that we have in front of us is the readiness of the European Health Data Space for secondary use in terms of interoperability of data sets. As you know, we have several categories of data that that all the data holders have to make available for their use. But at the same time, all these different data categories are at a different level of maturity, and the goal should be to put the different data sets working together for producing meaningful evidence. Right now, the situation is at a very early stage in Europe because we have so many different level of advancement in terms of interoperability. If we compare the different data sets, so for instance, we have some examples as cancer registries. So in this case, these registries are the results of decades of collaboration of research network and healthcare provision. So it is at the acceptable level of advancement in terms of interoperability. So we have common loading systems, shared quality assurance procedures, we have standardized case definitions, but it is not the same case for other categories of data, which are also part of the HDS framework and which are also part of those data that the data holders have to make available. And for instance, look at the biobanks or multi-omics research data sets, which are, or maybe also, even if it is part of the primary use of the HDS implementation, also the electronic health records. If we compare the national situations and cross-border situations comparing different member states, the situation of interoperability is quite at an early stage. So it is fundamental to create a common governance and standardize in terms of interoperability the different data categories. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to combine them for the best results that we aimed. The next one, please. And in fact, the situation is that when we think about interoperability, we have to understand that it is not only a problem of technical exchange, as in the case of syntactic interoperability, but it is also a problem of the meaning of the data that we are going to exchange, as it is for semantic interoperability, and also regarding the use that we can do with this data that we are going to combine for the use case, for the real case application, for the benefits that we want to achieve using the HDS framework. In the also in one of the most advanced categories of data that we have right now at the EU level as the cancer registries, as you can see, we could have limitations already existing, because even if there is a more advanced results in comparison with other data categories, but we still have national differences. We can have problems in terms of the adoption of the standards comparing different member states or regions or local entities which are collecting this data. On the other side, our goal should be to find an harmonization, because the analysis of this data, if we want to collect benefits and results for the advancement of research, medicine, and other possible applications, needs to be harmonized. The next one, please. So the real limitation is mainly when we are trying right now to collect all this information from all the different member states in Europe, and when we are trying to combine different data sets coming from different data holders. And the problem is that we have now to make all the system really effective for the results that we aim to achieve. We have to standardize, and one of the aim driver is, as we have said, interoperability. So we need to work on regulated data sets to promote the highest level of interoperability. And we have to work on creating common data models. We have to create common terminologies and governance framework to facilitate this great exchange. And when we look at this integration, we shouldn't look at electronic health records only, because within the HDS regulation at Article 51, we have so many different data categories, and the real benefits, the real value that we can achieve is combining all these different data categories to find the best solutions for patients and for the precision medicine and for the advancement of science that we aim to achieve. So it is important to work on that, because if we want to answer complex scientific questions, which are our main goal for predictive medicine, for personalized medicine, for exploring and discovering new therapeutics, and also to training AI models, we need so many different data categories and their combination. I think it's the last slide, Dimitri. Thank you. Please, your questions are welcome.
Thank you so much, Fidelia. So I welcome back all the speakers back. So we would like to jump right away into the discussion. So we've collected a bunch of questions, not so many comparing to the about 30 people in the room. So we have 6 questions to start with, and you also can actually vote to get the questions up, the ones that you like more than others. So, Laura, you're with us as well? Just trying to see if you're all here.
Yes, I am.
Very good. And maybe Jürgen as well, right? I also called Jürgen back too, because I've seen there's been also some IHE related questions on the standardization as well. Very well. I kind of be a little bit of a moderator here, even though I also have some opinions about some of the questions as well. So I tried to chip in. But I think this one, and the people who voted as well, this question up on the top, I think this is the dominating question to us, because we also ask ourselves the same question. So the work that we are trying to do and trying to organize this, how it is different from just another piece of work that is being done around, and I think this is a very fair question. So I'd like maybe who would like from the panel, who would like to take it first? It's a challenging and provocative question to ourselves, right? But if we don't have an answer to this question, why exactly we need just another community, just another work being done? Why do we spend time here? And why do we invite all these people in the room to take part in this conversation? So who would like to take the first turn on this question?
Dimitri, if I may just chime in here. So from the standards perspective, for those who don't know how standards development works, this is always like that. So standards development is never a project. It's an ongoing endeavor and an ongoing task to do things. And that means if we get to that point that we form this community and get this discussion going between the different parts of the community and so on, then we should set it up like standards development is set up, like an ongoing initiative, which, for example, has its root in a standards development organization, such as IHE, for example. And then it's automatically not just a project, because I really share the same concern that this is just like a 1-2 year effort and then it stops, because then it leads us nowhere. But I see Stefan has a hand up. I pass to you, Stefan.
Well, looking at the development of healthcare records on national and European scales over the last 20 years, what we see here has started 20 years ago with the EPSOS project. And it has since then continually grown. And you see us now in the middle standardization, in the middle, together with the full power of legal experts in all European member states. And that has a large effect also on the other places on this planet, on the other continents. And you see numbers and numbers of legal documents coming out at these very hours, which are actually referring to the standards that we develop. And that is definitely a clear evidence that it's now not an isolated standardization project and not a project itself. It's part of a very large, if you wish, top-down approach. And I think what makes me happy is that we see both a bottom-up, experts-driven standardization and healthcare and legalization effort from the very many disciplines that we require, which is coordinated by the European governance that we now see emerging. And so we may not solve all of this in one step, and we will definitely have to go on in a project type of work in the times to come. But what I feel is that the results of these projects are going to be taken over by this governance, and they are going to remain for others to be seen and to be used. And what you now see as European standards for healthcare data sharing, we didn't have that 5 years ago. And that's definitely one of the clear pieces of evidence that I see that this is not just another project, but it's a large sustained movement into really establish that on a large scale for hundreds of millions of people.
Fidelia, please go ahead.
Thank you. My consideration is simply a call to action to explore what are the existing activities going into the same direction. The idea should be to understand where is the community to join, because we have so many community at the European level working on different data sets and working for this standardization and interoperability and working for building the HTS framework for the secondary use. So at the local level, the first stage should be to explore what are the opportunities already existing and already ongoing at the European level to join that and to facilitate this kind of exchange to enrich the community and to facilitate this kind of higher level creation that could be the result of the participation of all the local European territories. So maybe we should be before aware of the existing initiatives and then evaluate how to join, how to contribute to enrich the existing initiatives.
And maybe from my end as well, I probably would add, as a lot of time we've spent already, more than a year trying to arrange the discussion on the topic. And I like what Jürgen was also saying. Maybe this work is not yet a standard development organization work that we're trying to do here, right? Because we started with the gaps. Now we probably see the needs, and maybe not everything is going to be a standard in the end of the day, but definitely that this is an ongoing work, which probably needs to gravitate somewhere, needs to land in some conversations driven by the bottom, that what we've been trying to pitch by the bottom-up approach. So somebody who is working today with their projects, they have something that we can materialize, we can surface and materialize, and that can go to SDOs, that can go to HDS board. We still don't know what is the structure or the framework for this work. So that's exactly what we are trying to figure out, how we can organize ourselves, what we can do. For example, there is an upcoming Connectathon next year, for instance, and we would like to bring some of the topics to test, to try, more practical than another, let's say, group discussion, doing a little bit more. So we're trying to add every year a little bit more actionable items on the agenda. And this is a community work. That's why we probably need to keep it somehow a community work, which in return can probably manifest into a project. Individual things can manifest into the projects. Using a standard, for example, seeing how far we can extend OMOP into the research community, because there are already evidence that OMOP is being used, but there are evidences that FHIR is being used. What is the best practice to use in both, or a third option? But there are other things that not everything is about data standards. So there is a lot of questions related to processing environment. There are a lot of standards to algo portability. There are communities which do already that, like GA4GH communities doing that work. But how does this land on our end? So this is the work that we are trying to organize which in fact can become a project, or one or another or many projects, depending on the funding that we can acquire for those things. Jürgen, please.
No, just what you said makes absolutely sense. And I just wanted to, put into the ring here, like we from the standards development community, we are always like sitting a bit in the back, what stands also in primary use, always on the first position is the use case, So, and we from the standards community, our core competence is to identify where are the interoperability parts in it, in this use case, where we need standardization. Because you said it, Dimitri, we don't fully understand what actually, should be standardized, what should not be standardized, and so on. So what we could contribute here from the standards community, from IHE, is our decade-long experience in exactly finding that out, and so we could be a good platform. However, this stands and falls, of course, with the participation of the stakeholders in that area. That's very important, that people say, okay, we try to, have a look on that, so it's a cooperation work. It's not like that someone can fix that for you or for the secondary use community. But we from the standards development organizations having a lot of experience in primary use in what to standardize and how to standardize and which processes work in doing that, because it's a very mediative process sometimes, to get systems together always requires to get people together first. And this is like in our genes, that's our day-to-day work. And this we can put there. And as Lori, for example, had in her part, you see already some things happen already, which could be useful also for the secondary use area. And we're happy to contribute that. Over.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add to that is it from the SDO perspective, there is a natural progression. So we bring the community together, we test what we've written down on paper, we modify it until it suits the needs, and then its natural end is final text and uptake by commercial products. So it shouldn't just be a project.
And be mindful of time. So we've got 10 minutes. We've got some questions still not answered. I don't know, Stefan, do you still want to chip in, or we probably touch a few more questions?
Well, I would like to touch the next question, like existing data. And I think Fidelia has thrown in the recommendation to look at what happens in the regions mainly. And there is a lot of data in the regions. And I think a very relevant question that I try to also put into the middle from my point of view is that those many people in those regions, they are doing things, and they've been doing so for 20 years. And now the discussion is what can we do with that existing data? And it may be harmonized or not, and we may need to harmonize it or not, but at least we would like to know what are the volumes of data that we have and what can we do with that data. And I think one of the first steps is to bring those people together who have the data and who are looking for that data on the two sides. And then we can come up with use cases. And I believe that this will definitely be more than one use case, because it's a big difference if you come from insurance or from healthcare services or from device development. These will need different use cases. That's my feeling. And I think if we start to ask the regions to raise and also other stakeholders, which data do you have and which questions do you have? What do you want to know? And then we can focus on how can we answer those questions. And that will lead us to the use cases. And then we can use the regions as, let's say, users, and the standardization organizations. And I'm sure the European Union will come in with legalization issues, and we can then reflect how to do this legally. And we have a few legal frameworks already existing, which enable us to do that. It's not just the data space law. There are other regulations that we can use, EHDS. So to just move into this discussion that Jürgen has called out for the typical use case oriented standardization work.
And maybe a quick background here, because now actually I'm looking at these two questions here. They actually the same question more or less. So that's actually 6 votes. So I think maybe this is, and the background to those who didn't read the report, we actually had that outlined over there. And I think it came from Medtronic, because Medtronic did some analysis during the workshop they shared with us, that they probably have about 25 years of data collected in the European Union, and assessing that, making that available, this is a tremendous cost, and not necessarily a justified cost, right? Because why would you need to have, I don't know, data from the 90s or early 2000s? Maybe you need, maybe you don't. Use case specific, probably. I think this is a fair question. But if you look at the face value of the regulation doesn't have any notion of a retrospective data set, if you will. If you read in Article 51, it just says these are the data categories that you need to make available. So if legally, I'm not a legal person, maybe there is a legal person here in the room today, but if there is no time specified, it means that there is no time notion. You just make everything available by regulation. And that is a cost, and that is not necessarily useful. So I think it's also, for me, it's a great question, and I don't have an answer to that question. Maybe implementing acts will come up with something that can respond to this, how far back we need to look and make things available, not to waste a lot of efforts in trying to make everything available. Even Fidelia, with your examples of cancer registers or biobanks, they also hold a lot of historical data. Do we make all the efforts to harmonize all of them to make them available? Or again, we can go a little bit more realistic and case by case. And again, is it gonna contradict the regulation requirements? So yeah, it's just a perspective, right? So I don't have an answer to that. But today, reading the regulation, we do need to make retrospective data sets available. There's no threshold, there is no cut-off date for any organization. So any organization which was collecting data for years, I don't know, all the statistics agencies in every country collecting data for so many years, they may be the data holders that have to open up their archives of data. Jürgen?
Yeah, Dimitri. I mean, actually, in the primary use, we have exactly the same problem. I mean, if you have a legacy system already operational and you want to step over to something new, modern, and so on, then you always have this problem, like either you somehow manage to, convert the old data into the new format. That's number one. Or if not, you can just dispose it. That's number two, if you are lucky. Or if that also doesn't work, then you need to maintain 2 separate tracks, like the more modern one, and the legacy one, which is always costly and not really like what people would like to. So this problem we probably don't get rid of, to be honest. So and we need to take care on it. However, we still need to figure out, what do we want to do in the future first, and then as a second topic, discuss and what do we do with the legacy data. I would not let the legacy data direct my future direction.
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. And you also have the question of fees. You don't get all the data for free. And if I transform legacy data into standardized format, it will cost a lot of money. And some of this money will come back to the organizations who do this by the fees. And this is a discussion we have not really started. So that's one, let's say, regulating influence. And I think the most important one is, it has already been mentioned, which information, which questions do we actually need to answer? And I think that should direct the data sources that we then select. And I think it may make really sense to transform legacy data, because we have a lot of it, and some of it may be very useful. But I think to transform all legacy data as a whole, it would just be very futile. Yeah, it would cover all our resources, and we wouldn't get anywhere. So I would only do that if there is a good argument to do it and a lot of benefit.
So in terms of access to legacy data, it doesn't necessarily mean transforming the data. It may just be the interface to that data that needs to be standardized.
Yes, exactly. So again, we look for the ways to do so. If regulation is just saying blankly, hey, just everything, open up everything, then we just try to come up as a professional community, how exactly this could be done. And that's why exactly we probably don't need to harmonize all of it. But yeah, if there would be available
Right. If you want to
standards and
compare,
profiles, exactly, interfaces, exactly, then it just case by case probably. And again, I think this is the relationship that we've tried to put exactly as a question to the report. That is the relationship between data user and data holder. Only them two between themselves can understand how exactly this could be organized in the most meaningful way, because even the fee structure that has been developed by top-down approach doesn't necessarily meet the standards of cost of data preparation, right? Because the European Commission cannot go in every place and understand the way how to price the data preparation process. That's very difficult, right? It's normalized. We accept that compromise that, hey, this is the fee structure, but it doesn't necessarily cover all the costs, maybe some. So we have 2 minutes left. So I think that we have a number of questions here not responded. I knew that we won't be able to respond to all the questions. I think that what we can probably do as a promise, we can go through all the questions and issue a small, maybe LinkedIn response or maybe a small paper on these questions, because I think that they are all worth it answering, and it's not going to take a lot of effort from our end, that we will publish an extra maybe page along to the report to share back with the community. And maybe Jürgen, back to you to close for today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Dimitri, for moderating this discussion. And thanks for anybody who contributed to this. That was very insightful, and I think we shared another piece of knowledge among each other. And you see, we are on a road, so to speak, and we want to get somewhere. And so my call to you is, if there is make your input, means share your thoughts with us, but also if you feel like a call for action, then please don't hesitate to contact us on a personal basis. We are here to, do some next steps, and we are happy for any thought and idea coming from you. If you are an organization who would like to engage in this and you see a value in maybe forming that community, please contact us. And we discuss together how we can move forward. With that, I really would like to thank you again. We are on time, and we try to arrange something for the autumn. Please stay tuned, and I wish you a nice day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much for everybody.